Hey guys, it's Bella. Welcome back to another Mystery Monday. If you're new here, welcome. We talk about true crime cases on this channel on Mondays. So if that's something that you're interested in, please come and join us. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. It's been a minute, guys. Honestly, I'm so sorry for my absence. Actually, before I say anything, I'm just gonna mention I got Invisalign yesterday. So if I sound maybe a little bit different, I don't think I've quite figured out how to speak with it yet. I have a little bit of a lisp. I'm getting wedding ready. The wedding is so soon, guys. I get married in 3 months. I can't believe it. I can't believe I'm gonna be a wife soon. I'm so excited. And I'm just, getting wedding ready, fixing the teeth a little bit. And the reason that I took so long to post, honestly, it has been hectic moving apartments, which there's going to be a vlog for as well. So I'll be uploading a moving vlog very, very soon. And then also planning the wedding. Who knew that was so much effort? Couldn't have guessed. But we're back. We are so back. And today we're going to be talking about a case that honestly left me speechless. This is one of those insanely infuriating cases, and I have not been able to stop thinking about this case from the moment I started looking into it. I think it is a pretty well-known case, but I had never heard of it until I saw a comment about the case, and I've just gone so deep down a rabbit hole ever since. So I'm just gonna get straight into it. On the 31st of August 2016, 32-year-old Charlie Carver and his girlfriend, 30-year-old Kayla Brown, had plans to have dinner with some of her friends. The pair had started dating a few months prior and things had been off to a great start, so much so that they had already moved in together. The dinner on the 31st was supposed to be an introductory dinner. Kayla was bringing Charlie to meet her friend for the first time and she was so excited about it. She told friends that they, quote, had a love that went beyond anything superficial. Kayla's friend, who described her as, quote, a really wonderful person who always wants to please people, said of the couple, quote, one day Kayla met Charlie at her mum's work and she thought, oh wow, that's a sharp looking man. Charlie was the firstborn child to parents Chuck Carver and Joanne Shiflett. They later divorced and both went on to remarry. And Joanne said that he was the type of person that could bring a smile to even the saddest person and that he was always laughing. His dad Chuck said, quote, he would give you the shirt off his back or the last $2 in his pocket. So it really was no wonder that Kayla was so excited to show him off to her friend at this dinner, but neither Kayla nor Charlie ever showed up to this dinner. And in fact, nobody could get in contact with them from this time on, and both of their phones were switched off. Charlie and his mum spoke every single day, and so when she couldn't get in contact with him, she was immediately concerned. By the 3rd of September, she asked the manager of his and Kayla's apartment complex in Anderson to go and check on them. And when she went up to the apartment, she knocked on the door, nobody answered, and so she let herself in. When she got inside the apartment, it was clear that neither Kayla nor Charlie were inside, and nobody had been in the apartment clearly for quite some time, but all of their stuff was there. Their clothes were there, prescription medications were there, Kayla's contacts and her glasses were in there. And the most alarming part is that Kayla's dog, a Pomeranian named Romeo, was in the apartment all by himself, no food, no water, and it seemed that he had been that way in the apartment, no food, no water, for several days. This made it abundantly clear that something was seriously wrong because Kayla's mum, Bobby, said that Romeo was Kayla's baby. She would never, ever leave him like that. Kayla's car was also found still in the apartment parking lot, but Charlie's 2002 Pontiac Grand Prix was missing. Missing persons reports were filed for both Kayla and Charlie, but there really wasn't a lot that could be done because there was no leads as to what could have happened to them. A close friend of Kayla said that she did have dinner with the couple at their apartment in Anderson on the 29th of August, but that was the last time that Kayla was seen. She did respond to a couple of texts over the next 2 days, but she went silent on the 31st of August. Charlie was last seen on surveillance footage leaving his work on the afternoon of the 31st of August, but that was the last time that he was seen or heard from either. There was no indication as to what could have happened to them or where they could have been at all. Even Kayla's mum Bobby said, quote, it's like you have a hot skillet and there are 2 drops of water you put on it. They just disappear. Their families began their own search and they really did everything that they could think of. They reached out to the media, they went on TV programs, they made a Facebook page titled Find Kayla and Charlie. They went and handed out flyers and did everything they could think to try and find them, but came up empty-handed. In one plea for information, Charlie's mother Joanne said, quote, "This is just so out of character for Charlie, so if anybody knows anything, please call and leave a tip. I'm begging you, please. It's the emptiest feeling I've ever had. It's like a constant pain in your head. Your arms feel like strings. You want to reach out, but there's nothing to hold on to because you're reaching for your son and he's not there." The police theorized that maybe they just went on a vacation and they turned their phones off and decided to have an unplugged vacation, but their families insisted that there was just no way. There was no way they would leave without telling anybody, and there was no way that Kayla would leave her dog with no food, no water, and without telling anybody. They also theorized, along with their families, that maybe they had been in a car accident because Charlie's car was missing from the apartment. Charlie's dad Chuck went and searched rural roads, ravines, creek beds, everywhere that he could think of, but he never found Charlie's car, and there were no reports of them at any hospitals or anything. Things get really weird on the 1st of October when all of a sudden new posts start appearing on Charlie's Facebook page, and he's logging major life events retroactively. So like backdating them to say that on the 1st of July, Kayla was pregnant, then on the 1st of August, they'd bought a house, and on the 1st of September, they'd gotten married. A week later, he posted a photo of him and Kayla and wrote in the caption that they were fine and had simply left, and this post was later deleted. As it turns out, Charlie's account had been very active since his disappearance on the 31st of August. He had been sending private messages to friends, and he'd been making a bunch of posts on Facebook which were hidden and then made visible from the 1st of October, and he started making more posts after the 1st of October as well. Several of his friends reported receiving messages from him in mid to late September, basically asking for money to get off drugs, which they all just thought was super weird and super out of character because he had, none of them had ever known him to have a drug problem. Other friends received messages that read, quote, "I'm just missing to everyone else. We're both okay. There's only one person that knows where we are. The person that means the most to me and Kayla. She knows where we are and we are coming that way forever." Over the month of October, over 50 posts appeared on Charlie's account, which included memes, violent memes, strange photos, photos of Charlie and Kayla, and a bunch of different statuses, all of which were super out of character, not only because Charlie rarely used Facebook before the disappearance, but also because of his grammar and the weird things that he was saying and posting. Friends and family immediately knew that it wasn't him that was sending these messages and making these posts. And what was so creepy as well is that whoever was using his account was using it to like Facebook pages and statuses about Charlie and Kayla's disappearance. One of the many posts that was made to his Facebook account read, quote, "I wonder if I said hello, how many people would say it back? Let's try it. Hello." Another said, "What color ribbon supports the cure for people who can't keep their nose out of other people's business?" They posted lyrics to the song Hotel California, which read, quote, "Last thing I remember, I was running for the door. I had to find the passage back to the place I was before. Relax, said the night man. We are programmed to receive. You can check out at any time, but you can never leave." Another really concerning post read, quote, "It's never going to end. They are not coming be to their families." Another super creepy status read, quote, "Sometimes late at night, I dig a hole in the backyard to keep the nosy neighbors guessing." Friends and family knew right from when the first posts were made on the 1st of October that it wasn't Charlie and Kayla behind these posts. So one friend actually commented on that status and said, quote, "Is that what you did to Kayla and the real Charlie?" And another friend commented and said, quote, "Are you hinting at what you did with them? You know it's sad that someone like you is using his Facebook page when his family and friends are worried about both him and Kayla." He actually was responding to some of Kayla and Charlie's friends and family's comments as well. So one of Kayla's friends named Tonya posted on Charlie's Facebook and said, "Where the hell is Kayla Brown?" Charlie's account responded, "Kayla is with her husband Charlie." Tonya says, "Why can't she have any contact with us? And who is this?" And Charlie's account responds, "She doesn't want to." Tonya responds, "I don't believe that. I know Kayla. She's not just going to run away from everyone. You or her should at least let someone know she's alive." To which Charlie's account responded, "The people that need to know that we are okay know that." Eventually, friends and family of Charlie actually noticed that some of the grammatical errors that were being made on his Facebook page were the same misspellings and errors that could be found on his estranged wife Nicole's Facebook posts. So she would always spell does as dose, and she would write R instead of ow, and these were the same errors that were consistently popping up on Charlie's new Facebook post as well. One comment made by Charlie's account even asked how another commenter knew, quote, "my hubby," and his account had even liked posts on Nicole's page weeks after he disappeared. And not to mention, the posts were only being made on Charlie's account, not Kayla's. Charlie was, before the disappearance, he rarely used Facebook, whereas Kayla was quite active on Facebook. And then after the disappearance, all of these weird posts are popping up on Charlie's Facebook page, but Kayla's Facebook has gone completely silent. Charlie and Nicole had been married for about 2 to 3 years, and they were in the midst of a divorce at the time of his disappearance, and I guess they didn't end on the best of terms. To make matters even worse, when police went and interviewed Nicole on the 11th of September, she told them that she had actually heard from Charlie and Kayla that day that for some reason they told her that they were going to Florida, but they got into a fight, and so instead they were going to the hospital. A week later, on the 19th of September, they questioned her again, because obviously they're going around questioning friends and family and everybody knew the couple. So they go and question her again on the 19th of September, and she told police that she had heard from Charlie and Kayla within the last 24 hours. By the 20th of September, police got a search warrant to search her phone, and then on the 23rd of September, they filed a search warrant to get her access to her Facebook account, and they received those files and those records on the 30th of September. And then she was actually arrested on the 11th of October and charged with impersonating a police officer. So basically the reason she was arrested was 3 days prior, on the 8th of October, she had called AT&T trying to geolocate Charlie's phone, and she impersonated a police officer to do this. When she wasn't able to provide the correct badge number for the police officer she was impersonating, AT&T called up the police. They're like, hey, someone is on the phone to us right now pretending to be a police officer. Can you confirm? The police were like, no, that's not us. And then they traced the call back to Nicole and arrested her on the 11th. Now, as it turns out, this whole thing with Nicole was just a big wild goose chase. Her phone records showed that she had never actually heard or spoken from Charlie or Kayla since their disappearance. Her Facebook records also confirmed that, and she also admitted that she had never heard from them. She just lied to police for I don't even know what reason. Police were obviously annoyed because they've spent all this time chasing a false lead. I honestly can't even understand the thought process behind her lying and doing all of that. Like, for what reason are you being this dramatic and throwing police off course on a missing persons investigation? It's honestly just another bizarre layer to this case because she had nothing to do with it. She literally doesn't even come up again in the case. Like, she genuinely had nothing to do with it. It just is so weird. So by the 14th of October, police receive all of Kayla and Charlie's Facebook records and all of their phone records, and they start going through all of that. Around the same time, the lead detective on the case gets a tip that Kayla was, quote, buried on a 100-acre farm in Spartanburg. Now, the major breakthrough came in this case when looking through Charlie and Kayla's phone data, which showed that the last time either of their phones pinged was in Woodruff, which is in Spartanburg County. It's about 80 kilometers or 50 miles from where the couple lived in Anderson. Their phones were active in this area from the day they went missing on the 31st of August until the 2nd of September when the phones went silent. They likely both died or were turned off or something. So this phone tower that their phones last pinged at happened to be located right near a 95-acre rural property, which is eerily similar to what this tip-off said about where Kayla was buried, a 100-acre rural property in Spartanburg. And then when looking through Charlie and Kayla's Facebook records, they found numerous conversations in which Kayla mentions a man named Todd Kohlhepp. Kayla had told Charlie that this man, Todd, had offered them a job, and so they arranged to meet with him at his residence in Moore, and then he was going to drive them to another property to do some outdoor work. When detectives look into Todd Kohlhepp, they find that he is actually the owner of that 95-acre rural property in Spartanburg County, the place where Charlie and Kayla's phones last pinged. So the police meet up with representatives from the Sheriff's Department in Spartanburg County, and, they tell them everything they've found and the fact that this clearly is no coincidence. So the Sheriff's Department flies a helicopter over that 95-acre property, and they really can't see much because it's so heavily wooded. All they can see is that there are a few buildings on the property. There is no electricity, there's just solar panels. It also had an electronic gate system, and the whole property had this big chain fence around it with all of these signs saying private property, no trespassing, if you trespass you will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. So police got a search warrant for this property. On the 3rd of November 2016, 2 teams of detectives were sent out. A few detectives were sent to Todd Kohlhepp's residence where he lived, and then another team was sent to the 95-acre rural property, which was only 8 miles away from his residence where he lived. As they drove into the property, they drove past his no trespassing signs and down a long gravel driveway until they reached a 2-story garage. What they found inside was so eerie. It was a makeshift living room, and then attached to the walls were all of these shackles and heavy chains and padlocks. And then in the bathroom bin, they found reddish brown hair, which is the color of Kayla's hair. In a ravine outside, they found, smeared with brown paint and covered with foliage, I guess in an attempt to try and cover it or hide it, they found Charlie's car, his Pontiac Grand Prix. So it was clear that the couple had both been on this property. As they continued to search the land, they come across a large green shipping container, which I think they call a Connex box. And this was sealed shut with 5 heavy padlocks. They started obviously trying to open these padlocks with a sledgehammer. And as they're doing so, they start to hear banging and desperate screaming coming from inside the storage container. They stopped what they were doing, they called back, and they heard Kayla yell back to them saying that she was in there, and they told her that they were going to get her out of there. It took them some 10, 15, 20 minutes with a power saw to get through these locks. That's how heavy duty these locks were. And I cannot even imagine what is going through Kayla's mind. I mean, that 15 minutes must have just felt like forever. And this whole thing is on video as well. Like, the video is so, I don't even have words for it. Like, watching that video, it's so emotional. It's so crazy to see. They end up getting the locks open and they have to pry the doors open with a crowbar. And when they get inside, it is completely dark. They have to use flashlights, and they get in there. There's a bunch of storage everywhere. There's this big cage that they have to walk past. And then Kayla is at the very back of this storage container. She's on a dog bed and she is chained up. Her neck is chained to the wall. Her legs, her ankles are chained together, and her wrists are chained together as well. This woman's strength is so honestly beyond words. She has been trapped in this storage container for 2 months now. She has endured unimaginable trauma, and yet when they rescue her, she is calm, she is coherent, and she was able to tell police everything that had happened to her and to Charlie in such a clear and concise way.
Is both feet?
Just one.
Let me
It's
see.
attached to a
attached?
chain from the wall,
Okay.
and my neck's attached to the wall up here.
Okay. All right. All right, we're going to get you out, sweetheart, okay?
Do you know where your buddy is?
Charlie,
Yes.
he shot him.
He shot him?
Who did?
Todd Kohlhepp shot Charlie Carver 3 times in the chest, wrapped him in a blue tarp, put him in the bucket of the tractor, locked me down here, and I never seen him again.
Okay.
He says he's dead and buried. He says there's several bodies dead and buried out here, and he
Okay.
says that the dogs will be ruined if they go looking because there's red pepper.
We're going to step you out, sweet. Because there's what?
Red pepper.
Okay.
Tell the dog people that.
He says
No,
there's pepper everywhere around the car. The car's supposedly in a ravine under the land.
Okay.
On the way to the hospital, Kayla was able to give the police even more information about her ordeal.
The first 2 weeks I was there in the building, my ankles were cuffed, my hands were cuffed behind my back, and I had a chain around my neck. I couldn't really even move the first week or so I was there.
She told them that Kohlhepp had kept her in that storage container, locked up in that storage container for almost the entire 2 months.
He would get there between 1 and 3 o'clock every day, take me up to the main building, beat me, make me do whatever he wanted sexually, and then he'd put me back in the building.
He'd come and let her out twice a day, so between 1 and 3 p.m. and 5 and 7 p.m. He would come, he would take her out of the storage container, and he would move her to that 2-story garage where he would basically beat her and make her perform sexual acts on him.
If I said no, he didn't force himself on me because he said he didn't believe in rape, but he made it very well known why I was there, and if I wasn't useful, that I wouldn't need to be kept any longer, and that he would shoot me.
He actually took her to the place where Charlie was buried in a shallow grave, and there was another little shallow grave next to it for her, if she didn't do what he wanted. He would brag of being a serial killer and told her that his dream was to have a body count in the high 3 digits, but that his body count was only in the high 2 digits at the moment. He told her that he had 4 other bodies buried on the property of other people that he'd killed there, and he even told her that he had picked out his next victim, a woman named Holly that he had been having an affair on and off with for the last 10 years. She was actually the one who purchased that shipping container that Kayla was kept in, but Holly had no idea what it was used for. She thought it was used for storage or something. She had no idea that he was, keeping people captive and whatever, killing people. When she was later interviewed, she said that Todd, throughout their time together, had made her feel important, that he gave her a lot of attention. So when she found out about all of this and she heard what Kayla had said, that he was planning on killing her next, she was literally speechless. He also told Kayla that he was involved in a quadruple homicide at a bike shop in Anderson years prior, which was still unsolved and nobody had ever suspected him for it, and we're gonna circle back on that one. But he also told her that one day Stockholm Syndrome was gonna kick in and that she would be happy with him and they could be a couple, that he was gonna build them a house on this property with a soundproof room in it for her, and one day he would let her have a run of the property once he could trust her, and even once he got old and sick, he would give her a bunch of money. He said that if she was a good girl, that he would teach her how to kill and that she could be his partner. And that he used to kill people for the government, that he was a paramilitary contractor, which wasn't true. So she told investigators that the way that she had met Todd Kohlhepp was through a mutual friend back in 2011, and they became friends on Facebook, they kept in touch occasionally, and she had done a couple of cleaning jobs here and there for him. He was a successful real estate agent in the area, and so when she and Charlie moved out together and started to build their lives together, she decided to reach back out to Todd to see if he had any work for her so that she could get a little extra cash, and he told her that he did, that she could, and Charlie, both of them could come and clear some brush from his rural property in Woodruff on the 31st of August. When they all went out to the property, he showed them around where he wanted cleaned up. Then he went into the garage to get them some supplies for the cleaning, comes back out with a gun and no hesitation shoots Charlie in the chest 3 times. They did end up finding Charlie's body on the property, and he had been put in a shallow grave, smeared with brown paint and foliage in an attempt to cover his body. So while all of this is happening on the rural property, they've found Kayla, they've found Charlie's body, all of this stuff, there's still those officers at Todd's house questioning him, and they have no idea any of this is going on. Or they know that the search is going on, but they don't know what's been found. And so they get a call from the officers at the rural property telling them, we've got Kayla, she's alive, we've found Charlie's body, we've found all of this stuff. And the officers confront Todd. He is just like frozen in shock. You can tell from his reaction that he is totally in disbelief. He's got no idea what to do, what to say. He ends up denying it all, but you can just see he's like a deer in headlights. He's so totally shocked that they've got him.
While we were here, all right, my sergeant served a search warrant on your property. Okay? We have Kayla.
Excuse me?
We have Kayla in your property. She was locked in a container. She has told us that you shot and killed Charlie. Okay, so at this time I'm going to need you to stand up and put your hands behind your back.
He's already handcuffed.
He's already cuffed. Okay.
So let me tell you a little bit about Todd Kohlhepp. He was born on the 7th of March 1971 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, but grew up in South Carolina. His parents, William and Regina, did not have a great relationship. William was even out on a date with another woman on the day that Todd was born. So needless to say, they got divorced, which happened when Todd was 2 years old. William did not stay in Todd's life. He was raised by his mother, Regina, and his stepdad, Carl Kohlhepp, who he hated. It was said to be a very unhealthy relationship with his stepdad, probably because he missed his biological dad. He really wanted to go and live with him, even though he really had no contact with him. But his stepdad, Carl, had 2 children of his own from a previous relationship. So Todd grew up with 2 siblings as well. They were a family of 5. From literally the moment Todd was born, he was a nightmare. He didn't make any friends at school. He didn't want any friends. He didn't want to socialize. He didn't like people. The only time he would interact with other kids was when he was being violent or insulting them and saying mean things to them. He would destroy his classmates' school project. His anger was so extreme that at one point he was on the school bus sitting next to a girl, and she, I guess, said something that made him angry, and he stabbed her in the leg with scissors. He terrorized his neighborhood too. Like, he would go around just picking fights with the neighbors. He was seen by witnesses, literally banging other kids' heads against poles. On one occasion, he actually locked a kid in a dog cage, and then he rolled this dog cage down a hill while this kid inside the dog cage was hysterically screaming and crying and begging for Todd to stop and let him out, and Todd was just laughing. He was also violent towards animals from a young age, which, you know, is a telltale sign of a serial killer. So I'm going to put a little timestamp here if you want to skip this part, maybe like 30 seconds. But basically, he told his parents that he wanted a gerbil, and they said, well, you can't get a gerbil because you've already got a goldfish. And so he said, okay, I'll kill the goldfish then. And he went and he poured Clorox bleach into the goldfish's fish tank and watched it die. At one point, he also shot a dog with a BB gun. I mean, he was insane. His mum and his stepdad had no idea what to do with him. He was completely out of control, and he had become obsessed with sexually explicit content as well. And so by age 9, they decided to send him to a behavioral institute for 3 months. They were trying to treat him, trying to figure out why he was so angry all the time. And there was a few factors. First of all, his mum was the biggest enabler. No matter how awful he was, no matter how terrible of a thing he had done, like stabbing a girl in the leg with scissors for probably no reason, to be honest with you. As you'll see, he makes up reasons in his head to be angry at people, but she, no matter how awful the things that he did were, she would just make excuse after excuse after excuse for him. When he was really bad, she would send him off to his grandpa, who, according to Todd, was abusive. He said that if he acted out, his grandpa would beat him. He would drag him outside by the hair, tie him to a tree, and then beat him with a belt or a horsewhip. He would shock him with an electric cattle prod. And one time he claims that his grandpa castrated a pig in front of him and told him that he would do the same thing to him if he was naughty. And then the last factor that came into play is that Todd claimed that he felt like an outsider in his home growing up. So like I said, he really, really did not get along with his stepdad. He hated him. They had a really toxic relationship. They fought all of the time. And then his stepdad, Carl, also had 2 children from a previous relationship. And I feel like, based on what I've told you, it's no surprise that he had a better relationship with his biological children. I mean, it's never good to favor children or have favorites or whatever, but Todd was literally evil from the moment he exited the womb. So I feel like kind of hard one there. But yeah, Todd he didn't feel like he felt fit in, and he felt second class. He felt second class to his siblings, and he was just an outsider in that whole household. So by age 12, he really wanted to go and live with his biological father, who he had not seen or heard from since he was 2 years old. But he had really built up this idea of his dad and what living with his dad would be like in his head. And his mum was really against the idea because his dad sucked. She bought him all new furniture for his bedroom to try and entice him to want to stay and not want to go to his dad's, and he got a hammer and he destroyed all of this new furniture that his mum had bought for him. He threatened to kill her if she didn't let him go and live with his dad. I mean, she was so scared of him that she would lock him in his bedroom at night, and then she even put a lock on her own bedroom door. And she would lock her bedroom door every single night when she went to sleep. When he eventually started threatening to end his own life if he didn't get to go and live with his dad, Regina eventually relented and she let him go. She let him go and live with his dad in Arizona, and even thought, you know, maybe his anger issues are stemming from not knowing his dad. Maybe this will be good for him. So at age 12, he goes and lives with his dad in Arizona, and his dad teaches him to make bombs and blow things up. He would take him to go and steal things. So he would take him to, you know, those business parks where there's like a bunch of different offices in a certain area. He would take Todd there with a truck. He would go in and steal as many things as he could carry. And then he would have Todd help load it all into the truck. He told Todd that he was an ex-mercenary, which simply was not true, and also sounds a lot like a lie that Todd told Kayla. He would tell Todd that if he got into a fight at school, if he didn't beat the guy up and he got beat up, don't even bother coming home, you're an embarrassment. But if Todd did win the fight, then Todd came home and his dad would beat him for taking it too far. Todd spoke of how while he was living with his dad, he really felt the violence inside himself growing, and he got into some very violent altercations while he was living there. When he was 14 years old, he was hanging out with a friend in an alleyway when all of a sudden a gang member comes up and shoots his friend as part of probably like a gang initiation or something, he assumed. So he tracks this guy down to his car and he shoots him through the window. Doesn't know the guy's name, doesn't know if the guy lived or died. He just shot him and walked away. And 14-year-old with a gun, insanity. Then when he was 15, he had his first criminal conviction. So he was obsessed with his 14-year-old neighbor named Katie, but she would always turn him down. If ever he asked her to hang out or come over or go on dates, whatever, she always said no, she wasn't interested. So on the 25th of November 1986, Todd's dad is away and Katie is at home babysitting her two younger siblings. So she had a 5-year-old brother and a 3-year-old sister. They were both asleep and she was in the lounge room just studying when the doorbell rings, and it's Todd, and he's trying to get her to come outside, and he's saying, you know, this guy that you have a crush on, he's just around the corner and he really wants you to come out and talk to him and he wants to hang out with you. She says, no, I'm babysitting, I can't come out, I don't want to come out. And Todd is really persistent. He's like, no, come, like he's waiting for you, you have to come and talk to him. And she just keeps saying no. Eventually she closes the door on him and he goes around the house to her rear door and starts pestering her from there. And so eventually she thinks, okay, maybe if I go outside really quickly, like she doesn't even put shoes on, right? She just is like, if I go outside really quickly, maybe he'll leave me alone. Instead, when she steps outside, Todd, 15 years old, puts a gun to her head and forces her to walk to his house, which is 3 doors down. When they get to his house, he tied her up, he put duct tape over her mouth, he put a knife to her throat, and he raped her. As this was happening, her 5-year-old brother woke up and he was really scared when he couldn't find Katie at home. So he called 911. When Todd heard the sirens, he decided that he needed to take Katie home and pretend that nothing had happened. They were just looking for a missing dog, and he threatened to kill her and her entire family if she told them what had really happened. So he walked her home, the police are there, her parents are there waiting, and she tells them exactly what Todd told her to say, that they were out looking for a missing dog. But her parents and the police, they could tell that it wasn't the full story. She just looked completely traumatized, and so with a little bit of coaxing, she just broke down in tears and told them everything that had happened. The police went to Todd's house and he opened the door holding a .22 caliber rifle, and the first thing that he said to them was, how much time am I going to get for this? He was obviously apprehended, arrested, charged, and he underwent a court-ordered psychological assessment and was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. It was found that he wasn't out of touch with reality, which honestly makes his actions that much scarier, but he was found to show deep emotional disturbance. He told the psychiatrist that he attacked Katie to rebel against his father. The psychiatrist determined that he had an inflated ego, that the only emotion he was capable of was anger, and that he was extremely rebellious to authority. The analysis led the prosecution to believe that he was a danger to society, and so they actually tried him as an adult, even though he was only 15 years old. He ended up agreeing to plead guilty to kidnapping, and in exchange, the sexual assault charge was dropped. And at the sentencing, his mum wrote a letter pleading for leniency, and I mean, honestly, you guys are not going to believe this. So in her letter, she said, quote, "They don't stop to think that he even walked the girl home. Does that sound like a dangerous criminal? He even walked the girl home." She even said that this incident brought them closer together because he had been writing her frequently from prison. And she said, again, quote, "You know, it's strange. Maybe a little good does come from some bad." No words. That is insane. So he was sentenced to 15 years in prison, and during his time in prison, he really didn't have any problems. He had a couple of incidents at the very start of the sentence, but from that point on, he was really well behaved. He was pretty much a model prisoner, which is honestly probably because he learned that if he puts on this front, if he puts on this friendly act, he's more likely to get what he wants. And if there's one thing to know about Todd Kohlhepp, is that is kind of his MO. He puts on this act, he puts on this front to try and manipulate people and get what he wants. months. His good behavior didn't get him any favors in prison because he didn't get released early. He had to serve the entire 15 years of his sentence, and he was released in November 2001 at age 30 as a registered sex offender. He moved back to South Carolina to Spartanburg and got right to work building a life for himself. While he was in prison, he actually got a bachelor degree in computer science, and so in 2002, he got a job as a graphic designer. A few years later, in 2006, he applied for a real estate license in South Carolina, and they actually didn't require a criminal background check, but applicants were required to note and explain their own criminal convictions. So basically, he explained his criminal conviction away as a petty argument with a girlfriend when he was a teenager. He says during the argument, his dog ran away. They went looking for it. Her parents got home while they were looking for the dog, and they just didn't know where their daughter was. They called the police. He takes his girlfriend of the time home, and then because he had a gun on him when they got back there, he was arrested. He claims that Arizona at the time was cracking down really hard on minors and firearms, and so that's why he got 15 years in prison. Honestly, doesn't even make sense. Like, the conviction and the story don't really match up, but it was a good enough explanation and his application was approved. Within a couple of years, he had become a really successful real estate agent. A 2008 article even said that he was the best-selling rookie in both Carolina regions. He started his own real estate business in 2009 named Todd Colehep and Associates, and it did really well. He ended up with over a dozen agents. He had great reviews online. The website, though, was a little weird because in the section that it described the team that was in charge of the firm's marketing, it says, quote, "We threatened not to feed them if it didn't work. It's amazing the motivation you can get after day 3. All in all, though, he was a really well-respected guy. He was known to be a hard-working man. One of his co-workers said, quote, "Todd did his job well and we never had any issues or saw any flags in the years that we worked with him," which I don't know if they were naive or they were just missing the signs, because there were reports that he openly discussed his status as a registered sex offender, and he even would brag about the fact that he lied about how he became a sex offender and why he was in prison for 15 years in order to get his application approved. He would boast about his wealth and the fact that he was an expert with firearms. He was known to watch porn in the office. Even when his colleagues would come into his office, he would just have porn playing on his laptop. Which I guess men get away with that kind of stuff, don't they? I mean, he's openly watching porn at work in front of his colleagues. He's bragging about being a registered sex offender. But, overall, great guy, super hardworking. He made a lot of money. He owned multiple properties, started driving nice cars, BMWs. He owned multiple cars. In 2013, he achieved a childhood dream of getting his pilot license. And in 2014, he purchased that big 95-acre rural property in Woodruff, and he spent $80,000 installing the electronic gate, the big chain fence that went around the whole thing, as well as deer cameras and bear traps, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, were not put there for deer and bears. Now, by 2016, he was posting all of this crazy stuff online. First of all, in September, while he's holding Kayla captive on his property in that storage container, he's posting all of these weird Facebook statuses. On the 15th of September, he wrote, quote, "Reading the news, this person missing, that person missing, another person missing. Oh wait, that person just went to the beach with a friend. Other person was found with her parole violation boyfriend. In the event I become missing, please note, no one would take me. I eat too much and I'm chubby. They would just bring me back or give me $20 for a cab ride. Most likely if I'm missing, it's because my dumb did something on that tractor again and I'm too stubborn to go to the doctor. I got 9 lives." On the 26th of September, he wrote, quote, "In my family, you got backhanded for talking back or being disrespectful. Actually acting up ended up a spanking that was epic. You do not want to make the same mistake in my family again. Wonder what the punishment would have been if I had looted, burned cop cars, and threw stuff at people. I wasn't even allowed to yell. Just sitting back going, ooh, you gonna get it when mum sees." Then he comments on his own posts. He says, quote, "Very true. My family believed raising me was a group effort. That means when I messed up, mum beat my ass. Stepfather beat my ass when he got home. Next time I went to grandparents, I got my ass beat. They made a believer out of you. I went on to many new mistakes, but damn if I ever made the same one again. No, no, and oh hell no. You stood up for the anthem. You shut up when adults spoke. You sure as hell never set that cup down hard on the table. No. And cop an attitude over anything? Well, you just lost TV, bike, friends for that month. After the spanking, you just didn't act up. These kids and adults just don't know. Damn shame too. They might learn to appreciate it if they did." On the 30th of September, he posts, quote, "Just admit it. You look at the news, you see the political crap and school shootings and just general what the hell is going on. Zombie apocalypse is starting to look better and better every day." And then on the 3rd of November, so the day that he was actually arrested, he says, quote, "We need Ebola to come as a huge snowstorm, wipe out half the population, then melt away. Just tired of entitlement, rude ass people for no reason, people who race to cut in front of you, slam the brakes on to make right turns, and that motherfucker that stands in the aisle of the grocery store, and dude, you know who you are, that blocks the aisle, checking out the microbrews, and blocking everyone on their way to Michelob," which I don't even know what that is, "bitch move." Then, at the same time that he's posting all of these statuses, he's also posting these crazy Amazon reviews for things that he purchased for obviously sinister reasons. On a master padlock review, he wrote, quote, "Solid locks, have 5 on a shipping container. Won't stop them, but sure will slow them down till they're too old to care." On a fixed blade, his review wrote, "Haven't stabbed anyone yet. But I am keeping the dream alive, and when I do, it will be with a quality tool like this." On another master lock, he reviewed it and said, "Works great. Also, if someone talks back, go old school on them by putting this in a sock and beating them. They won't appreciate the hardened steel like you will. Works great on shipping containers." His review for a shovel was, "Keep in the car for when you have to hide the bodies and you left the full-size shovel at home. Doesn't come with a midget, which would have been nice." And then on a review for a chainsaw, he wrote, "Works excellent. Getting the neighbor to stand still while you chase him with it is hard enough without having an easy to use chainsaw." And then on another Master Locks padlock, he wrote, quote, "Now my locks have locks. Place is Hotel California now." Clearly is his favorite song. So following Kayla's rescue, he is arrested and he's taken down to the station for questioning. While he's in the interrogation room, they tell him that they found Charlie's body, at which point he just makes a full confession, and not just for his crimes against Kayla and Charlie. His only stipulations for the confession was he wanted to call his mum first, and he wanted to be able to transfer some money to a friend's daughter to pay for her college tuition.
Oh, there's a collar in there? That collar was Kayla's.
Neck collar?
Yeah, she had me order it.
She asked you to order it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It,
We'll get to that in a minute.
she had me get her vibrator, the TV, the DVD player, the MP3 player, the coloring books. I said, coloring books? Adult coloring books.
Okay.
He claimed that Kayla wrote him letters while he was holding her captive, basically begging him for intercourse. And he said, quote, "I'm not saying she's not a victim. She's not the victim she portrays. I mean, it turned into 50 Shades of Grey." There are actually no words for how vile this, he's not even a person, honestly, how vile he is. He said that the dog bed on the floor, the one that Kayla was found sitting on, was her, quote, "submissive kitty bed," and that it, quote, "threw him off." That she requested the collar around her neck rather than having the chain around her neck, and that she went into this whole thing of submissiveness and asking him to tell her that she needed permission to talk to him, that she needed permission to look at him. There are no evidence that these letters exist, that she wrote him any letters, and even if she did, she could have just been doing whatever she thought she needed to do in that moment to make things better for herself, to appease him. She even said, quote, "I realized it was easier if he thought things were going his way, so I made him think whatever I had to." He ends up going on some random tangent as well about how my storage container wasn't meant to be used for this, it wasn't meant to be used as a cage, and even said that until the week before Kayla's rescue, that there wasn't a roof on it, that he so kindly put that roof on there because she was cold. Early on in his confession, he also agreed to take police to his site on the 95-acre property where he had buried 2 other bodies. These bodies were so decomposed that they could only be identified through dental records and the tattoos on their bodies. They were 25-year-old Megan McGraw-Coxey and 29-year-old Johnny Coxey. They were a married couple that lived in Spartanburg and had a son together, and they'd been missing since December of 2015. An autopsy revealed Johnny had been killed immediately by a gunshot wound to the torso, but Megan was kept alive for a further 6 days until Christmas Day, when she was killed with a gunshot wound to the head. Megan had met Todd Colehep while working as a waitress at a Waffle House, and he had offered her a job there cleaning up some of his properties. He was a regular creep at this Waffle House, and he would come in, he would leave these big generous tips in order to get the attention of the waitresses, and then he would try to invite them back to his house. And he creeped out so many of these waitresses that the male cook had to start coming and taking his order because none of the women wanted to. So Megan did have a history of heroin usage, and when her son tested positive for the drug, she was charged with child neglect in late December of 2015. She asked her mum to pay the bond so that she could get out and work a job and get her life on the right track and be better for her son. Her mum paid the bond, and then she never heard from Megan again. And that's because the job that she bonded her out so that Megan could go and work was the job that she had been offered by Todd Colehep. She'd gotten out of jail, she'd gone to work this job, she was held captive for 6 days, and then she was murdered on Christmas Day. In Colehep's confession, he said that he met up with Megan and Johnny and he drove them out to his Woodruff property and he walked them down to his creepy little buildings that he has on that property under the pretense of getting them supplies for their cleaning job that they were about to carry out. When he comes out of the garage, Johnny pulls a knife, and so he says that he just shot him. When he was asked what he did with Johnny's knife, he said, quote, "I don't know, I don't keep that kind of crap." From that comment alone, I'd say that it's pretty obvious that he is lying about some of these details, so obviously take it all with a grain of salt.
They saw a guy who had a load of money, driving a car they can't afford. They didn't even have a car, and they were going to get something.
So then you shot him how many times?
Shot him twice
Okay.
in the chest.
Okay.
After shooting her husband in front of her, Megan obviously started freaking out, and Todd said that he didn't know what to do with her, so he chained her up, put her in that storage container while he figured out what to do. He said, quote, "I didn't know what to do with her, man. One side, I really wanted to drop her. The next side, I really kind of wanted to save her ass." I mean, honestly, the things that he says in this confession and the things that he says about Megan are insane. He offered her $4,000 and to drive her down to Tennessee, and he said that he wasn't worried that she would go to law enforcement about what had happened because of her sketchy past. And then he says,
"Oh, she got so excited, I got my sucked."
She did?
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't bad.
after he makes the offer of the $4,000 and driving her to Tennessee, the weather gets bad. It's sleet, it's rain, and he doesn't want to make the drive in that kind of weather. So he just leaves her in the shipping container for a few days. And on Christmas Day, he goes down to check on her in the shipping container, and she has managed to set it on fire. He said, quote, "Went to get her out and all of a sudden it's like I had a caged animal in my hands. I don't know what the hell. She went from I'm so friggin' happy in the world, I'm gonna go to Tennessee with all my money and I'm gonna restart my life, thank you, to batshit crazy." Mate, because why would she be going crazy? You've only killed her husband in front of her and then locked her up in a storage container for 6 days. Baffling stuff, really. He says, oh, I got her all this stuff. I got her lanterns so there was light. I got her these ventilation things. I got her pillows. I got her blankets, and she lit the damn thing on fire. I mean, how dare she be so ungrateful to be locked in this disgusting, dark, dirty little shipping container? I got her blankets and everything. How could she be so thankless? He even says, quote, "It wasn't like she was emotional about the situation. This has been days. It wasn't like that. It was like just serious chemical imbalance shit. Couldn't be that she's being held captive or anything, surely." I mean, it is really so deranged and insane because he really thinks that he is like doing her a favor or something, and how could she be so ungrateful for everything that he's doing for her? He says that after he goes to the storage container and finds that she's set a fire in there, he walks her out of the storage container and just shoots her in the back of the head. And it is so eerie how casually he says that. He also confirmed that he used the same gun to kill Johnny, Megan, and Charlie Carver.
It's not my favorite gun.
It's a handy gun.
A handy one. It's very effective, especially if you shoot 180 grains.
Then he goes on to shock police by confessing to an unsolved quadruple homicide from 2003. This was one of the most haunting and notorious unsolved cases in South Carolina because it was just so senseless, and it really baffled detectives for 13 years until Todd's confession in 2016. So Superbike Motorsports was located in Chesney, South Carolina. It was an institution for bike enthusiasts, and it was the kind of place where the customers became friends and they would just go and hang out at the store with each other, with the owners. It was owned by 30-year-old Scott Ponder, and he worked there with his best friend, 29-year-old Brian Lucas. And they clearly just had a very easygoing, friendly energy about them because they had so many customers that they just became friends with, people who would just come to the store, hang out, and spend time with them. One of these customers was a guy named Noel Lee, and he said, quote, anytime I was off work, I would go up there. A lot of us went up there to hang out. It was a good time, a really good time. Definitely my closest friends. I would leave there on some days and I would say, all right, guys, love you guys. So on the afternoon of the 6th of November 2003, Noel wanted to go by the store and visit his friends. So he calls the store at around 2:30 p.m. just to make sure that they were free, and Scott's mother, 52-year-old Beverly Guy, answered the phone. She helped out at the dealership here and there, but she'd only dropped by just to run some errands, so she was planning on heading out to make a deposit at the bank, but told Noel that Scott and Brian would be there, so come on by. When Noel arrived at the store half an hour later at 3 p.m., he arrived to a horrifying scene. Brian Lucas, Scott Ponder, his mother Beverly Guy, and the mechanic 26-year-old Chris Sherbert had all been shot and killed execution style. All 4 victims had been shot multiple times with a 9mm pistol. They had all been shot at least once in the chest and once in the forehead.
Okay, what's the problem?
Apparently everybody's been shot up here. Everybody's laying down in a pool of blood. His mama's been shot, the mechanic's been shot, and the owner.
So this case went unsolved for 13 years, and obviously over the years there were many theories, there were many suspects, but something insane about this case is Scott's phone was found with his body and he had dialed the numbers 333, so police assumed that he had been trying to call his wife Melissa. At the time of his death, she was 7 weeks pregnant with their first child. They'd actually attended their first prenatal checkup just 2 days before his murder. They'd heard their baby's heartbeat for the first time. Their baby was born 7 months after the murders, and Melissa named him Scott Jr. after Scott, and he was affectionately nicknamed Scotty. Melissa said, quote, that birth overshadowed any type of sadness that I felt through this. I got to hold a piece of him again. I had his flesh and blood with me. About a year after the murders, Melissa met up with a couple of the investigators on her late husband's case, and she thought that they were just there kind of for a catch-up, a couple of updates on the case maybe, and she brought her baby infant son Scotty with her. Little did she know, they were not there for a catch-up. They were there to literally take her baby's diaper from the trash to go and test that for DNA, because they had received a tip-off that Scott was sterile, that he couldn't have children. So they used the diaper to test the baby's DNA against Scott's DNA, and it wasn't a match. But it was a match to Scott's best friend, Brian Lucas, who also died in the shootings. Brian had also been married with 2 children, but him and his wife were going through a bit of a rough patch. He had actually been going to see houses without her, and in fact had even gone to see a house on the day of his murder. So it wasn't exactly a stretch for investigators to think that they'd been having an affair. This was all really hard on Scott's stepfather, Terry Guy, because he not only lost his stepson and his wife in that shooting, and he'd gone through a really, really severe depression as a result, but now his daughter-in-law might be responsible, and his grandson might not actually be his biological grandson. Melissa was completely shocked by all of this. She was blindsided by this information, and she was adamant that she had never had an affair, that she had never cheated on Scott. There was no way any of this was true. She said, take more DNA tests. I will bring my baby to you. You can swab his mouth in front of me. You can put it in the envelope in front of me and send it off in front of me. She even went as far as to tell them that they could exhume Scott's body to take another DNA sample to test against baby Scotty's DNA. She took a polygraph test where she was actually asked, did you murder your husband? And did you plan the murder of your husband? Then investigators get a DNA sample back that shows that Beverly Guy is not actually Scott's mum either. And even more impossible, the DNA shows that she's actually the mother of Brian Lucas, which basically led them to the realization that they had actually mixed up Scott and Brian's DNA samples. So for 18 months, Melissa was falsely accused of cheating on her deceased husband with his also deceased best friend. She was accused of being involved in their murders. And then Scott's grandmother, who she was actually close to before all of these accusations, actually passed away during that 18 months, believing that Melissa had cheated on her grandson and that her great-grandson was not actually her biological great-grandson. Melissa also had to endure people saying so many horrible things about her. I mean, it was really awful what she had to go through, all because they messed up the DNA samples. And to be honest, the whole investigation could have been better from the start. There was actually a customer that had been in the store right before the murders, like literally minutes before the murders, and he told police that there was another customer, a sketchy customer, in the store when he left, and so that customer was most likely the killer. He even helped them come up with a composite sketch of this guy and everything. So knowing that the killer was most likely a customer, police put together a list of all of Superbike Motorsports customers so that they could send them a letter, try and get in contact with them to see if they had any information. Todd Colehep was on that list. They sent a letter out to everybody on that list asking them to come forward if they had any information. Todd received that letter and obviously never responded. He never received a visit from police. They said there was no reason to visit everybody on that list, despite the fact that they had tried to call him twice and he never answered, never called them back, never responded to their letter. There were no red flags. Not even his 15-year prison sentence was a red flag that they thought maybe actually we should interview this one. Terry Guy said, quote, "The sad part about it is had they thoroughly checked every person on the list, it might have helped however many people this gentleman's killed in the last 13 years. So 13 years after these murders, in Todd's confession, he describes the murders as being like a video game. He was so casual about the whole thing, and the things that he said and the way that he described this quadruple homicide is so chilling. He said things like, quote, "My golf game was weak. My kill game is strong."
I cleared it in under 30 seconds.
You what now?
I cleared that building in under 30 seconds. You guys would have been proud. I'm sorry, but you guys would have been proud.
I'm sorry, but how unsettling is that? He had less than no remorse. He was actually proud of what he had done. He described to police the events of that day and what had led up to the mass murder. He'd been released from prison just 2 years earlier and was studying at Greenville Technical College and decided he wanted a motorbike. So he went into Superbike Motorsports and purchased one for $9,000, but it wasn't long before he realized that it was a bad decision. The bike he bought was too big for someone like him who was unexperienced in riding motorbikes. But just days after he purchased the bike, it was actually stolen from his apartment complex. He said that he felt like the staff had been rude to him and, quote, "They dropped it off at the apartment so they knew where it was stored. 2-3 days later, it was stolen. I made a police report, insurance came out, I lost a $1,000 deductible." He claimed that he went back to the store to get another bike, and while he was there, one of the employees implied that they might have been involved in the theft of his bike. But he goes on to say, quote, "I let it slide for the time being, got mad about him, kept going out there, sitting on bikes and listening to the owner and the manager basically talk trash." So he spent all of his time just stewing, basically getting angrier and angrier about an interaction that he honestly probably just made up in his head. Eventually, it all came to a boiling point for Todd, and he went out, he purchased a 9mm pistol, and then he drove out to the store one last time on the 6th of November, 2003. While he was at the store, he pretended to inspect some bikes. He even went as far as to say he was going to purchase a bike, and so they took the bike out to the back. The mechanic took the bike out to the back to prepare it for him to take it. He waited for all of the other customers to leave because, quote, "collateral damage is not cool." He then walked into the back of the shop and shot 26-year-old Chris Sherbert as he was preparing the motorbike for him. He then walked back to the front of the store where he shot 52-year-old Beverly Guy. He then shot at 29-year-old Brian Lucas and 30-year-old Scott Ponder as they made a run from the store, only interrupting his spree once for a, quote, "tactical reload." He said, quote, "I proceeded to walk back through the building to clear, and as I did, I put one in each person's forehead." Todd Colehep pled guilty to 7 counts of murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, and 1 count of criminal sexual assault. On the 26th of May 2017, he was sentenced to 7 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Although nothing can ever take away the pain of what their loved ones went through, it did bring some relief that the case was finally closed and they got some sort of closure. Kayla Brown didn't attend the trial because she was struggling with severe PTSD as a result of what Todd Colehep had done to her, but family members of the victims filled the courtroom and offered each other support. Scott's wife Melissa's voice broke as she addressed Todd. She said, quote, "I've missed motorcycle riding on the back of his bike, having him there to rub my pregnant belly, to feel Scott Jr. kick and take him bike riding, motorcycle riding. I lost so much. Megan Coxey's mother, Mary, spoke of Megan's son and said, quote, "Every time we went anywhere, he looked for his mum. Then the day came where we found out where his mum was. It was one of the worst days of our lives to tell him that his mum was dead." Todd's mum, Regina, continued to be as infuriating and delusional and disgusting as ever. And guys, she said, quote, "It's not like he went out daily and killed somebody. There was a lot of time between the first ones and then the others, which I know that doesn't mean much to the families and I'm sorry, but he wasn't a serial killer. I'm sorry, but he's actually the definition of a serial killer." Genuinely speechless at the audacity of this woman. She also tried to justify his actions, saying that these people embarrassed him. That's why he killed them, because they embarrassed him. And she said, quote, "Anybody, I don't care who you are, whether you have a temper or you don't have a temper, nobody wants to be embarrassed." Kayla Brown and many of the family members of the victims filed wrongful death lawsuits against Todd Kohlhepp. In August of 2018, Kayla was awarded $6.3 million in damages. Johnny Coxey's family was also awarded $2.7 million in damages. Kohlhepp's various assets were auctioned off in order to provide damages and pay off his debts, including his 95-acre Woodruff property, which was sold for $500,000. Melissa Brackman, the wife of Scott Ponder, said that these lawsuits, though, are not about the money. In fact, she doesn't even expect a significant payout. The money that was made from selling his assets is not enough to cover the damages that any of them were awarded. But Melissa said that these lawsuits give her an opportunity to face Todd one more time and get some semblance of closure. She said, quote, "If it was a $5 check that was sent our way, I honestly could not care less. That's not ever been what this is about." Todd Kohlhepp is currently serving his sentence at Broad River Correctional Institution. And that is everything for this case. That's the whole case. I mean, honestly, this is one of the most infuriating, frustrating cases I think that I've looked into, because this man is just beyond anything I've ever seen or heard. Like, the way that he was describing these murders was so scary. He thought it was like fun and games. The things that he was saying, he thought it was funny. Anything that you could say to this man, truly, I think would just inflate his ego and make him feel better about what he has done. It just really pissed me off, honestly. Just researching this man really pissed me off, and I can't even imagine what any of these people went through, what their families went through, what Kayla went through is so beyond imaginable. I mean, that footage of her getting rescued, it actually gives me chills. Honestly, her strength is admirable. It's truly admirable. After everything she went through, and she's so clear and concise, and she's able to give police all of this information, it is honestly just insane. This case, I don't even have any words. I don't have any words. This case is insane. But let me know your thoughts. That's all from me today. That's all for this case. But I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.